This is 12.5, worksheet number 1. So we are factoring these trinomials into binomials. First thing you should always check is there a single factor that can come out of all three terms, whether it be a variable or related to the coefficients? In this case, no. So we are going to look for products of 90 that add up to negative 19. If we are multiplying to a positive and adding to a negative, we know we've got two negatives. So it's going to say x minus, because two negatives multiply to a positive, but they'll add up to a negative. So 10 and 9 are going to be the numbers there. Multiply to 90, add up to 19. Number 2, we got negative 27. So 27, I think 9 and 3, and I look at 6, and I know a 9 and a 3 can get to a 6. And since it's multiplying to a negative 27, I know one of them's negative. So if I wanted to get to a positive 6, I need the 9 to be positive and then the 3 to just come off of it. So a plus 9 and a minus 3. Okay, number 3. Now I've got something that I can factor out of all three. So you take a look. This is different, and we talked about this in 12.5, having a coefficient here. But before we start worrying about doing all that kind of work, we can actually just factor that 2 right out. Every single one of these terms has a 2 that can be factored out. So we're going to start with that. So we're going to take the 2 out. So what would I multiply it by to get 2b squared? That would just be squared, right? Multiply here, I end up here. What would I multiply by to get to here? That would be a negative 10b. Multiply that, you get negative 20. And then to get a 42, it's going to be a positive 21. 2 times 21. All right, so the 2 has come out, and now I have to take a look at this trinomial and make sure this can't be factored anymore. And it can. So now I've got a basic one, no coefficient here. I've got 21, that's 7 and 3. It's multiplying to a positive, adding to a negative, so I know it's two negatives. And it's going to be 7 and 3. So minus 7, minus 3, and the 2 is going to stay right outside. The 7 and the 3 multiply to positive 21, and they add up to negative 10. Number 4, no coefficient up front, just looking at products. I know 81 is 9 and 9. I notice that it's positive and it's adding up to a negative, so again, we're looking at two negatives. 9 and 9 multiply to 81. They also add up to 18, so it's minus 9 minus 9. And we can rewrite that as x minus 9 squared because it's being times by itself. All right, now to the new work on 12.5. So we've got a coefficient up front. First thing you should check is, can I factor it out of everything? And I cannot. 3 does not go into 35. So I'm going to have to use kind of my new tricks to get this done. So I have to take a look at this first number and see what are the combinations of factors to create that one. Now a 3 is nice and easy because it's just 3 times 1. So I know I'm going to have a 3 out front here. Dealing with 72, I have to pick numbers that multiply to 72, and one of them is going to get multiplied by 3, and it's going to get added together to make a negative 35. So we want to think about numbers that multiply to 72, like 36 times 2, more commonly 8 and 7, obviously 72 times 1, and there's going to be even some more combinations. We could get a 12 to get to it as well. But let's start with the most common one with 8 and 7. So first of all, they're multiplying to a positive, but they're adding to a negative. So I automatically know I've got a minus and a minus. And I'm going to think about this 3 is going to get multiplied by one of these two, and the other number is going to stay the same because it's going to get multiplied by an x. So if I multiplied 3 times 7, I'd have 21. And if I added 8, I don't get 35. So I know that's not going to be the combination. So 7 can't go here. But if I did 3 times 8, 3 times 8 is going to be 24. And if I'm sorry, 8 times 7 is 56. What are we doing here? That would be 8 times 9. So let's try this again. I was already going down the path with 8. So if I did 3 times 8, if I put the 8 here and the 9 here, 3 times 8 would be 24x negative. And then this would be negative 9x. If I put those together, that's going to be negative 33x instead of negative 35. So that's no good. So I know it's a 3x and an x. That's the only way to get 3x squared. I'm guessing it's 8 and 9. We'll go try these other less common ones if this doesn't work out. But what if we switch the spots? So what if I put the 9 here and I put the 8 here? So I would do 3 times negative 9, and that would be negative 27. And then I would get negative 8. Those both would have x's. And those, when you put together, sure enough, are going to get you the 35x. So I get the 3x squared here. I get the positive 72 here. And after I've multiplied the 9 times 3 and the 8 times x, I'm going to end up with the 35. And so this is going to be my correct answer. So it's a little bit of trial and error. All right, number 6. Again, we've got a 3. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that out front. It's the only way to make it. We're multiplying to a negative, so this gets a little tricky. And it's going to add up to a positive. So my bigger number here is going to have to be positive. So most likely I'm going to be multiplying the 3 times my positive, and then the negative is going to come off of it. So with 40, I'm thinking 10 and 4, 20 and 2, 8 and 5. So if I'm going to multiply 3 times, say, 10, 3 times 10 is positive, that's going to be 30. And then if 4 came off of that 30, I would be at 26. So that's perfect. So just a little bit of mental check without actually going through every single one and checking it. 3 times 10 is 30. That gets me close to 26. The 4 will get me where I need to go. So I need the 10 to be a positive. So it's 3 times 10 is 30. And then the negative is going to be the 4. So we want to ensure that when we multiply, we get a negative 40. But now I get positive 30 and I get negative 4, which will combine to this. So you can always double check yourself. This is the correct answer. You can double check yourself. You'll get 3r squared. You're going to get positive 30r. You're going to get negative 4r. You're going to get negative 40. And then these two will combine to make your 26. Number 7. Again with a 3 out front. So I'm going to make it look like this. Multiplying to a positive, adding to a negative. So again, I know that these are two negatives, so that helps me. 32, most common factors of 32 that you see will be 8 and 4. So I'm going to start with that and see if it works. If I do 8 times 3, I'll be at 24, and if I add 4, I can get to 28, so that's perfect. I'm going to put the 8 here and the 4 here, so they will multiply to a positive 32, but that makes sure that I'm multiplying the 8 by 3 and not the 4 by 3. So the 8 will get it and get me to negative 24, and then the negative 4r will get me the rest of the way. All right, with a 7, again, a little bit easier because 7 can only be broken down into 7 times 1. We're multiplying to a negative, adding to a positive. Most likely the positive is going to be here because we're going to multiply by 7, get a bigger positive, and then take a little negative off. So when I'm looking at 40, I'm going to think 8 and 5 maybe, or 10 and 4. Let's start with those. If I did 7 times, say, 8, I'm going to be at 56. I'm never going to get back to 18. So what if I did 7 times 5? So I'm at 35. If I take 8 off 35, I'm not going to get here. So I'm thinking it's not 8 and 5. What about 10 and 4? If I do 7 times 10, I'm at 70. I'm not getting back to here. But what about 7 times 4? Well, that's 28. If I take 10 off, I am back to 18. Okay, so I'm going to put the positive 4 out here. That creates a positive 28. And then the negative 10 here. Now, again, the reason I knew there was a negative and a positive is because of this. They're multiplying to a negative, so one of those has to be negative. You can always double check yourself. Here's the 7a squared. Here's the negative 40. And then we're going to have 28a and negative 10a to get me back to here. All right, here's where we start to get a little tricky now because we have to go through trial and error, and we don't know with a 9 if it's 9 and 1 or if it's 3 and 3. So up here we knew it was 3 and 1 and 7 and 1. But here we could have a 9x and an x, but we could also have a 3x and a 3x. And both of those will get me back to 9x squared. So I've kind of just got more combinations to work through here. When I see 80, I'm thinking 8 times 10. I'm going to try that in both of these first. Now the nice thing here is I've got all positives. So we're just adding up. So if I did 9 times 8, that's going to be 72 with a 10. Not going to be good. And same thing with, it doesn't matter which one of these I multiply by. I'm going to have numbers that are too big. So let me check over here. If I did 3 times 10, I'm going to be at 30. And then I would actually be multiplying the other side by 3 as well. So I'd be 3 times 8, and that would be 24. So here we only have to consider the 9 being multiplied because this is just a 1. But here, both of them are going to get multiplied by 3 because this one's going to take the 3 here. This one's going to take the 3 here. And so this is going to work. Let's take a look. And in this case, it's not going to matter where you put them because they're both going to get multiplied by 3. So I'm going to put the 10 here and the 8 here. But let's make sure we see it. The 3 times the 3 is 9x squared. We know the 8 times the 10 is the 80 out here. But in the middle, we're going to do 3x times 10, so that's 30x. And we're going to do 8 times 3x, and that's 24x. And together, that's going to give me the 54. And so that's going to work out for me. All right, number 10. With the 4, again, I could have a 4 and a 1. But I could also have a 2 and a 2. So I kind of got to think about it both ways. Now with 45, I'm thinking 9 and 5. That's the most common ones there for 45. And we are going to multiply by a negative. So this can be a little tricky here. So let's just try a couple combinations here. If I put the 5 over here, 4 times 5 is going to be 20 if it was a positive. And then I'd be taking 9 off. Well, that's not going to get me there. And then even if I did the 4 times the 9, that's going to be 36. Taking 5 off, that's not going to work. So let me try over here. Because they're both being multiplied by 2, it wouldn't matter where I put these, but I'd have an 18 and I'd have a 10. And when I look at that, I can get myself to an 8. Okay, I just need to make sure I put the positive and negative in the correct spots. And if you want to just put it twice, you could. So you could do minus 9 plus 5 and try it, or you could do plus 5, minus 5, and plus 9. Make the two different combinations and just try it out. So here you're going to get a positive 10n, and here you're going to get a negative 18n. That's going to get you a negative 8, and that's not what we want. And here where we switched, the 5 is now negative and the 9 is positive. You are going to get an 18n from this, and you're going to get a negative 10n from this. And of course up front you get the 2n squared, and you get the negative 45. But these two are going to come together to make a positive 8. So this is the correct answer. I'm just going to rewrite it. 2n minus 5, 2n plus 9. Okay, 11 and 12, same idea. With the 6, it could be the 6 and a 1. But it could be a 2 and a 3. And now we get even trickier because now it's not split up into 2 and 2 and 3 and 3. But a 2n, I don't know why I said n, 2b and a 3b. All right, multiplying to a negative, adding to a negative. So the bigger of the two is going to end up being negative. Now the nice thing is here we're factoring this out. We know it's 3 and 1. So that saves us some time. So over here, if I did 6 times 1, I'd have 6 and 3, not going to make 7. If I did 6 times 3 and 18 and 1, I'm never going to get it. So this one's not looking good. If I go over here now, all right, I know one of them's negative and one of them's positive. So I could do negative 3 and a plus 1. And then I could create the same thing, but with a positive 3 and a minus 1. Both of these up front are going to get me 6b squared. Both of these in the back are going to get me negative 3. Let's see if either one works out for negative 7. So in the middle, this one I'm going to get a 2b, and I'm going to get a negative 9b. Well, right away I see that's going to work. So this is good, and I can stop. So kind of got lucky there. All right, number 12. 4n, again, could be a 4 and a 1. Or it could be a 2 and a 2. When I see 14, I'm thinking it's probably 7 and 2. But I do see that 15, and I'm thinking, 14 and 1 might be worth looking into real quick if 7 and 2 doesn't work. The good thing here that I see is I'm multiplying to a positive number. So these two numbers multiplied together will make a positive, but I'm adding to a negative. So that's another clue that this is a negative times a negative. So let's say it was 7 and 2. If I did 4 times 7, right, that's going to get me 28, and the 2 is not going to get me to 15, so that's no good. What if it was 4 times 2? That's 8, and then a 7. Well, 8 and 7 will get me there. So I think I just found my answer. So I'm going to do 4 times the 2 out here and the 7 here, and then double check myself as always to see if it works. And if it doesn't, I'll move on over here. So 4n times n is 4n squared. We're good. Then I multiply here. That's negative 8n. Multiply here. That's negative 7n. Hey, that's going to get me negative 15. And I already know out here I'm going to get positive 14. That's why I chose those two numbers. So this is going to work. And so this is my right answer.